I'm Shawn Mahshie. Just take a moment and let yourself be breathe. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. And let yourself be thought. Just let the thoughts come as they will. Even though you may see the cost of them and ramping up your anxiety or otherwise, just hi, come on in. Squeeze anywhere. It's a very large room. The buffet, is that?
That's a person coming.
Somebody's coming. Okay, great. So I'm going to do this in a rather unusual way. I present all the time because I'm a happiness and self-forgiveness coach. Really, self-solidarity is the other side of self-blame and self-abandonment. And yet I am getting ready to give a TED Talk, and wrote this talk and memorized it to give at the Gross Global Happiness Summit that was at the UN University of Peace. I have this talk completely memorized, the first half of it, and I don't have it memorized now, but I loved that the points that are being made there. For the first half of the talk, I'm going to be watching my notes really closely here, and we'll go back to memorizing it before the actual TED Talk happens. But so I want to just start that right now. Please forgive me as I seem to be depending on my notes, but I want to stick with it. And then we'll come back and we'll actually work part of the Wheel of Self-Forgiveness together, so you get a little hands-on experience. As I talk, if you can start to be thinking about what are the ways you beat yourself up, what are the ways you walk away from a conversation and say, shoulda, woulda, coulda, why didn't I just? You're late for work and you're like, when am I ever gonna, those kinds of, it can be a really big life thing. I worked in a group, I just did a online 3-day thought detox event, and one woman worked major regrets about having accepted such a low settlement for her divorce, and now she's very much struggling financially, regretting that she had stayed so long in the marriage when her husband was pretty abusive and the kids saw all that. So they can be big regrets, or it can be just the littlest things that we beat ourselves up for, just the way we used our time. So just be thinking about that, because there's two halves of what I do. There's the judging others and there's the judging yourself. Usually at these talks I've helped people get to the I need them too thought, which I tend to think is sort of in some ways the one thought behind all emotional pain is I need this to be different than it is. This or me or them or that past or present needs to be different than it is. So we often have worked the I need thought, I need them too, which is easy for people to find. I need the government too, sometimes it's a little harder to find the regret, guilt, beating yourself up thoughts. You know it when you're in them because they're very painful. For me, it's always a kicked in the stomach feeling that I had for much of my life until I learned how to get out of it. But that's what we'll be sharing today. And so be just thinking about that. Take some notes if you want, if you think of, oh yeah, I did blank and beat myself up, because I will want you to have an example. So, all right. It's Sunday dinner and I'm 8 years old. I sit frozen as my wonderful mom becomes so consumed with self-judgment that it feels like she's abandoned me. I'll do anything to get her back. If you're like me, your brain twisted these animal instincts of fight, flight, fear, or fawn. Oh wait, that's not fear, is not the one, but fight, flight, freeze. Freeze, right? Or fawn, which is kind of this one, and turn it all on yourself. And I call it regret hell, when we turn it on ourselves and the punishing yourself for what you should have, would have, could have done. A hopeless investment in the rearview mirror, since nothing can really be changed there. And our minds have tricked us into believing somewhere along the line when we were young, like I did at that Sunday dinner table, that beating ourselves up is going to make us do better next time. It's going to make this thing, but it doesn't. It doesn't fix anything. It just drags us down. So like my mom and so many powerful, purposeful women I know, and men, I carried this disempowering, self-critical mindset for most of my life. And despite my own success as an administrator, an author, a speaker on world stages, I continued turning myself into a pretzel to please and placate others. And it just really eventually caused the ruin of my health, my career, my marriage. So I had a major life crash, and it wasn't until 9 years later, after every kind of healing modality that I could think of, that I came upon a way out of that. And it started out based on the work of Byron Katie, in which I became certified over the course of 6 years under Katie, and yet I still saw that there was a piece where I was turning on myself, and this lets you get out of that. So the personal, societal, and monetary costs of this habit of self-criticism are just so great. And it turns out, well, Dr. David Hawkins, I don't know if any of you know the Power versus Forth, in his levels of energy, he rates the part where you turn on yourself, shame, guilt, self-criticism, regret, as lower than fear, lower than, what's another one that's really, but the shame. I work with those bottom levels of energy, and we really can change them. They're all based on the inner wiring. So what's amazing is, oh, I know, it's even apathy. There's fear, apathy is below fear, and then the ones where you turn on yourself are even lower on that. So it's a huge cost. And I honestly believe that much of the autoimmune disorders and physical pain we have is that our bodies are following suit of our constantly turning on and criticizing ourselves. So this explains what I have witnessed in myself and others, is that when you have a way out of that, everything changes. I have boundless energy, even though I'm at some fairly advanced age, and no more physical pain for the most part, and just so much can start to change when you're, because in some ways, anxiety, depression, all of that, your body experiences you being under attack. But the attack is from your own mind telling you you did it wrong and the outcome is going to be horrible, and so you go into worst case projections. So we'll just look a little more about that, and you get a chance to see how you do it. So clearly, just learning to forgive and stand with, by, and for ourselves, which I call self-solidarity, has such huge ripple effects for the planet, and is, when we learn to stop using hindsight as a cruel weapon of self-destruction, it really gives us a tool. I spent all those years of inner work without anyone being able to teach me the how of forgiving myself. In fact, one CEO that was a recent client of mine said that she had a therapist for 12 years. After 12 years, the therapist is saying, when are you ever going to forgive yourself? It's like, well, if she knew how, she would. So this is the how. And in fact, that woman's executive coach would just say, shut down that fear, shut down that self-criticism. But when we affirm over or just push those thoughts alive, those innocent thoughts are trying to save us by beating us up. That belief that we'll just do better if we figure out what we've done wrong and all the bad outcomes of it. And our survival brain is wired to focus on those worst case scenarios. But positive affirmations and many of the therapeutic and even somatic approaches to PTSD, and a lot of it, don't necessarily unlink the thinking. So you might do some energy work and you feel better, and then a week later it's back because your mind is creating the cascade of emotional chemicals that links up to the place where the original stress was held, where it wasn't safe to feel it when you were younger. So regret, hell, I believe, is one of the biggest traumas that we can do to ourselves. So anyway, mostly we see these self-sabotaging behaviors turning into self-love and self-support, and for me, decision-making too. I realized that my level of indecisiveness that people, my family, others were noticing, whether it was in a restaurant or anything else, was not necessarily about, I'm afraid of this or that outcome. It was about my fear of beating myself up. So as soon as I knew what to do, that I wasn't all of us, I'll go with client, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, what would be the worst thing about that and the worst thing about that? And pretty soon you're homeless, lying in the gutter, and yet the worst thing about that is that you're beating yourself up. So anyway, it just unravels almost all of this. So I wanted to just move, I was getting to just the wheel of self-forgiveness is what this is called. And I've actually got 3 books, a big one, a middle-sized one, and then this small one. This one's about to come out on Amazon, and we were hoping to have it there for you to pre-purchase today, but if you would like it, just going to sign up on the back side of that. You know what, I didn't bring the card to sign up on, but let me know. So this is about reconnecting to your own innocence. So we're going to come back and work through this, and you get to relax into the safety of not knowing that all these fears you're projecting onto the actions you took or the ways that you showed up. And we really end up in a state of fearless faith. This was just a slide from one of my 5-day thought detoxes. And then ultimately, you're going to be able to be your own hero. So just a little background, this Living in Symmetry Blueprint, when I found the work of Byron Katie, which is 4 questions and turn the thought around so that it releases, I instantly knew that I was going to be writing about it and spending the rest of my life helping people see what I saw as symmetry, the symmetry of whatever upsets you. So this is just the really simple picture of it. This part's becoming the curious, compassionate caretaker of you, moving into the observer. Then either if you're pointing the judgment out, you would do the work. If you're pointing it at yourself, you do the wheel of self-forgiveness. So that's where that falls in there. And then this part is a free fall into fearless faith and forgiveness and fun. And then finally is enjoy your evolution and embrace its edge. So I have a number of these happiness hacks just to let you know a little more about me, that I've been running retreats. This is my house right out here in Churchton, and we have on the water on the Chesapeake Bay. We have a retreat coming up May 1st. So if any of you are interested in that, just see me outside here or back at our little booth number 20. And one of the biggest things is this self-sabotage. We've identified the self-sabotage styles, one of which is turning on yourself. So anyway, this is from a slide that about if you do want trainings or keynotes. So that's the book though that's coming out. So we're going to do the exercise now. But first, before we go ahead, does anybody have any comments or questions so far, or a situation that has come up for you that you might? I would love to actually work with someone. I usually have people kind of doing their own work along with that person, but if we have someone who's willing to be a guinea pig, we'll go through this and find your situation and see if we have a volunteer. So this situation can be obviously large, or it can be really small. It's a place in your life where you wish you had said or done something differently. And just to give you some examples, let's see if I did write a little, so I used to walk out of a meeting at work and always wish I had said something or wish I hadn't said something. Either way, I couldn't win. I would order something in a restaurant and wish I had ordered something different. It can be that small. Or eating something late at night that I wish I hadn't eaten. Those of us who have had sort of food issues, there's a lot of beating yourself up around food and weight. And then again, one of my clients regretted that she never finished college. She was just merciless with herself and kept herself a lot separate from others in her social sphere. And yet when we went back and did this work on it, she totally found what was happening for her, why she left college. She had actually been raped by a friend, and her mind had just forgotten that. All it did was, so major life decisions. So think of something where you have turned on yourself and abandoned yourself and beat yourself up. So even if you're not in that place about anything right now, imagine the hell of regret you live with anytime you believe there was a better way. See if you can find a situation. So now this is, does anybody not have a situation? It's funny, it's really easy to find the other finger pointing ones, but does anybody want help finding a situation you can hold in your head while we work? Or maybe you found one and you'd like to share it so that others in the room can hear what you're working on.
I'll go.
Sure.
One of the things that my inner critic I tend to be a perfectionist, is that I just stopped practicing music because I'll never be as good as this guy or whatever. And why bother practicing? It's going to take several lifetimes to get to where this guy is, and always comparing myself with this person, so rather than just enjoying the journey.
King Charles was hot.
Yeah, so the not enough story is just incredible. Yeah, and this one, it's interesting. This one is about not so much as a not enough state, I'm not good enough, I'm not as much as an action you regret, since that was a lot of what I used to do. But there are both, and you can use it for all those times that you didn't practice enough to be as good as them. So do you have a story about this not good enough that relates to wishing you had done something different?
Well, most of my childhood was basically in survival mode. So, my dad had combat PTSD, so you couldn't really make loud noise or he'd just snap.
Right.
So music, I always played music inside my head. I can hear the lyrics and da-da-da-da-da, but I could never really belt it out for fear of retaliation.
So it sounds like in a little bit you've already sort of found your innocence there.
Right.
You can also, in this step 2, which we're not going to so much get to that, but if you want to get this literature, step 2 goes to, okay, so then the consequence was I had a lifetime of not being a good enough musician. Your mind goes there, and then what is good enough,
Right.
It creates a standard and says I need to be that good. If I'm not, why bother to practice?
Right.
So when you will be able to find what you need to be able to stand with, by, and for the part of you that's been beating you up. Anybody else have something that maybe right now even you wish you had done something or said something? I worked in this recent 3-day thought detox. It was one of the women, did a piece of work on wishing she had been able to stand up to a boss that was always shaming her in front of other people. And that was 10 years ago. So she was able to go back and really find, that the ways that she was doing the best she could. So if you found a situation, part of it is just really going to feel the pain of blaming yourself and engaging in the hopeless, I should have. So I had a mom who said should have a lot. We actually believed. I grew up believing in should have, as there was some right way to do it, and we didn't do that. So if we would turn here and hit traffic right away, we should have gone left instead. And it's like, no, your mind didn't know that. So part of this questioning, the reason the work of Byron Katie led me to this wheel of self-forgiveness, is that the turnaround for I should have done it, well, no, I shouldn't have because I didn't. So you realize the reality is all that we have, And the monkey mind will come up with, well, no, that's the reality that should have happened. That's the reality that would have been better. And if you start to question the thinking, your mind cannot know what would have been better, what would have been a better path for you, for your children, for any of it. So to be able to do this, the step one of the wheel of self-forgiveness is just really go back to the moment, whether it was right before you walked into this room or whether it was 20 years ago. Go back in your mind's eye and see the moment that you now regret or you wish it had gone differently. Now this is tricky if there's a lot of not doing something. Like, why didn't I tell someone I love them? Or why didn't I just blank? So when there's a lot of not doing something, is a little different than if you did something, if you said something you regret, then that's a very easy one to go back and stand with, by, and for that you. So we'll start with that. If you have that kind of thing where even, for example, people have had to work through car accidents. You made a error in judgment that caused other people to be hurt. So you go back and what were you thinking and believing? That's this first thought. The step one is just, what was I thinking? I don't know if you can read it from here. So you really say, what was the lens I was looking through in that moment? So for example, if you're on your phone while you're driving, well, I was thinking, believing that I could be on my phone and drive. Even though we've been cautioned about that all the time, in that moment, you honestly did not plan to hurt or kill someone or bang up your car. In that moment, you honestly believed you could do it. So some people would say, well, does that mean you should just go around and say people can do whatever they want, and because they know how to forgive themselves, then we just steamroll over each other? But it doesn't work that way. It really seems to be that if you are in charge of finding your own innocence and forgiving yourself, you are more likely to take responsibility for your actions. When people are so busy beating themselves up that they can't stand to even really look at the consequences, or they entangle other people in forgiving themselves, this turns out to be what I would call an all-out amends, where you really can go to a person and say, okay, I've done step one of the wheel of self-forgiveness. I see what I was thinking and believing that caused me to act the way I did. And I'm so sorry. I fear I may have caused harm for you. Is there anything I can do to set that right? So if you're like, oh, I feel so bad, will you please forgive me? And you're all tangled up with them, as opposed to they see, okay, you saw what you did, you saw what was driving it, you're taking responsibility for it. And you're even in that place able to actually hear what they have to say. I want to hear your experience of what I just did to you. And they might kind of go off on you. That doesn't mean you need to sit in the face of abuse, but you're really so self-contained that you care about what happened to them at the hands of your action or lack of action. Even if you really, wish you had done it differently, you realize, no, that is the best I can do. And by looking full in the face at it and seeing it as it is, I am more likely to be able to make a change going forward than if I keep going back and not feel, saying, I should have done that, should have done that. And it's like, no, you didn't. You did exactly what you did. You had reasons to do that. You were believing X, and with this work, then we can go back and what was that thought you were believing that drove you to act that way? Oh, I thought they were going to hurt me. So this is part of step one, is what I call finding the spark of self-love. So it's the spark of love and self-love, and that's the second book. It's called The Spark of Self-Love, is that no matter how dastardly it was, and you could say, yeah, but I was really nasty to them and I did it on purpose. I wanted to hurt them. Okay, you still find your own innocence. What were you believing? You were probably believing they were going to hurt you or that they already had. And really, whose job is it to take care of the parts of you that feel their survival is being threatened? It's yours. And so I call it the spark of self-love or the spark of love, meaning always an underlying motive to help or fix or support. So that's part of step one is, I don't think it's written on here. Yeah, when you find yourself in regret, how the antidote is to ask yourself, that's funny, I've already gone through the slides, but we'll go, or this process. Return to the moment you regret, ask yourself what you were thinking. Notice that you did not actually choose to believe this. It was an unconscious convergence of mental programming, and that's what you were believing in the moment. That was your only reality in that moment. And I think this is a key to being able to find your own innocence and overcome some of those post-traumatic stress things too, is that there's a lot of party line out there that says you choose your thoughts. If you notice, you will see, no I don't, the thought just popped in. Yes, maybe later you can see the consequence of that thought and try to move it in a new direction. But in that moment, that was the lens you were looking through that caused you to act or react in a way that you later beat yourself up for. So the fact that you didn't choose the thought, it just showed up. It was like a happening. You can say, well, as long as I was thinking and believing that, I did the best I could. So this is the basis of the whole finding your innocence. I mean, I remember one of the first ones I did was I had regretted that my daughter's adopted from China, and that a lot of the other moms in our group or families brought snuggly things, and we brought a stroller. And so my daughter was in the stroller going down this crowded streets in China, and you see her kind of like this, and her hat's over her head, and I could never forgive myself for that. Oh, I should have held her next to my heart. Well, it turns out she was almost autistic at that point. I believe she was really checked out. She didn't really like that much physical contact with us. It was very hot. The babies that were in Snugglies were all crying a lot more. I think they were just hot. So, and I was able to see that I was doing the best I could as a mom who had never had kids before. We brought a kind of a carrier, but it didn't work. It kept slipping around behind. And I was just finally able to say, look at her there. She actually kind of liked, being the one that was figuring things out. And even when we got her home, she wanted more time alone, and I almost had to teach her to be touched and held and spoken to, because she had been so, at the end of a long row of babies, the ones in the front could all sit up and she couldn't even lift her head. So I was able to finally recover from that thought and say, yes, I was a good mom. I did the best I could given what I was believing, which was that bringing the stroller was the thing. So see that once you were believing it, you couldn't have acted any other way. And then find the spark of self-love. Discover how you were always acting out of love or a wish to help, including the instinct to protect yourself when you believed your happiness or survival was at stake. So does anybody have an actual action you're regretting or a thing we can work through? I gave you one of my examples about the stroller. It's so strange because when you're in it, you so need to be rescued from it. It's so painful. And when you're not in it, sometimes it's hard to find them. So, do you have one?
My stepmother once complained to my dad that when I called his house, I didn't speak to her. I would just say, is dad there?
Aww.
And the reason was because I always usually calling dad at my mother's initiative, and she was sitting right there. And I knew she hated my stepmother. So any acknowledgement of my stepmother I felt would be an affront to my mom. And I've always regretted being so stoic and ignoring my stepmother's request to be honored out of fear of what my mom would think or how it might hurt her.
Beautiful. Yeah, so if you really, maybe you already found that along the way, but if you really go back and remember, who were you in that moment? What were you up against? Like that woman who dropped out of college. It's like, okay, that whole thing, you couldn't stay anymore. Really, even if it's just that you fire back a response to somebody that you later regret. Okay, what were you believing in that moment? What were you afraid of? But then when we go on to I'm not actually So coming back again to asking yourself, what was I thinking? I'll read this to you in a minute, but the step 2 part of it, which I didn't really include, I wasn't sure we'd have time here, is to see, okay, even if you forgave yourself and you found your innocence, our mind always goes to, yeah, but I did this thing and now this bad thing is going to happen, or this bad thing already happened. Like you feel maybe your stepmother didn't feel as loved by you as she was, or what would be your mind's projection that said, well, because you did X, now blank happened.
Well, our relationship just deteriorated from that point. It just got really toxic, you know?
Yeah, so, and that's the thing, sometimes it's a future thing where your story will be, oh, they're gonna be mad at me. So in that case, I don't have slides for step 2 because I wasn't sure we'd have time, but in that case, the question is, can I absolutely know that that thing is going to happen? You realize, no, your mind doesn't have a crystal ball. It doesn't know what's going to happen 1 second from now, let alone 2 weeks from now or a year, or whether that person is going to be mad, or whether that person didn't even notice that you did that thing. But your mind will say, oh, they're mad at me. So that's the first part, is to say, can you absolutely know that thing is going to happen? But in a case like this where you feel it already has happened, you are feeling that led to the deterioration of your relationship with her. So even then, the question is, the mind is going, and that's a bad thing. It likes to categorize. It's always about, you know, people who, spiritual traditions will all say don't judge, but our mind is a judging machine. It's, you know, good, bad, fat, thin, smart, dumb. So with this work, with what I call living in symmetry, where we use the work and the wheel of self-forgiveness, you would harvest the thought, oh, that'll happen and that's a bad thing. So I like to bring it back to 4-year-old language. That's a bad thing. So the fact that you and she's relationship deteriorated, of course, we would all say, well, that's a bad thing. But can we absolutely know, like in the grand scheme of things, on anyone's path, that your relationship with her was supposed to go any differently than it did? I mean, it could, crazy as it seems, be that you went through all of that so you could come here today, find your own innocence, be the example for the rest of these wonderful people who will now maybe be a little more able to find their innocence, and the ripple effect that goes out of that. I mean, for me, growing up with a self-critical mom, one of my clients always says, oh yeah, my husband's always yelling at the kids. And she's like, I don't yell at the kids, I just beat myself up. And I'm like, to me, the cost of a mom who beat herself up was worse in a way, because I wanted so much to make things better for her, and it just killed me to see her be hard on herself. And the flip side of that is she was judgmental and hard on other people. So you will find that even if you are a person that tends to have blame as your go-to place, when you really come in and do this kind of work that we do in my groups and retreats, you will find a lot of resentment on the flip side of that. It just went underground because you were probably in situations where it wasn't safe to point to the elephant in the room that you were really mad at when you were a child. So you learn to turn it on yourself, but you're still kind of resenting people for not being able to take care of your needs or whatever, or the other ways when you might even be more judgmental than the judgmental people. I was one of the people that turned on myself, and I found when I started doing this work that I was angry at the angry people, because I was like, why do they have to be so angry? And I was judgmental of the judgmental people. It's like, oh, I'm not judgmental. But then I was judgmental of the judgmental people. So anyway, but you can ultimately find that no matter how bad this thing is that happened, we're not in charge of the unfolding of what is supposed to be, you know? You can't necessarily know, but ultimately we can know that for you to turn on yourself and abandon yourself in the ways that maybe you abandoned her, because you're mad at yourself about this, to just carry the burden of that. Is she still alive? Yeah.
No, she died last year.
So to carry the burden of that, what's that doing to those littlest parts of you? That it really turning on ourselves, no matter how bad the outcome of our innocent actions. Turning on ourselves is just bringing more hatred into the world. It isn't really, it's a misguided path of self-improvement. Most of us think if we beat ourselves up, we'll do better, and it just goes the other way around. It just tears you down rather than saying, no, that is exactly what I did. I did the best I could, and what was I believing that caused me to act that way? And so there may be even a situation in the future where being able to find your motives and find your innocence because of this big painful one, that, you know, that ripple effect or that future. But most of all, always this is about making amends to ourselves. Self-abandonment is my specialty, and it's actually a psychological diagnosis. It's where we turn on ourselves. The minute something goes wrong, right away we blame ourselves. Or we leave ourselves and just only care about what other people think. But when we get that on paper, whether it's through the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet of the work, or putting down what we believe we should have, would have, could have done better, and why it was so horrible that we did it the way we did, we will be able to come home to ourselves. And so this is the step 3 of this. And let me see, coming back to step 1 though is, let's see, does that go backwards? All right, well anyway, it was that, if you, I'm really sorry I didn't bring up the cards that I have at my thing, but I wanted to make sure I got the names. I've got plenty of paper here, to make sure that you give your name and email address and phone number if you want, and I'll follow up and send you this. Is the Wheel of Self-Forgiveness cheat sheet. So reconnect to your own innocence. So what was I thinking? And this is what am I fearing? And this is what do I want from others or life? So for example, if you, let's see. Kimberly, right? we met, but we hadn't really exchanged names. Kimberly, if you were to say, in order to know that you're forgivable and you can truly move on beyond this, what would you want from others or life? What would you want from her so that you know you're okay? If you were to make a list of what you wish, even in her on the other side state, what would you want her to know or feel about this?
Well, just that it was because of torn loyalty that I resisted complying. It was not that I didn't want to talk to her.
So you would want her to see your innocence, to know that you did love and care about her on some level.
Yeah, and it was just an awkward situation for me as a young girl.
So if she were going to come, and if she could see all of that now and talk to you, like she's all wise now and knows everything, even if she suffered over it during her life, maybe you were right, maybe it was really painful for her that you weren't more connected to her. But now she can see it. What would that her who has forgiven you say to you and who has seen? What would she say to you? If you had your dream of how this could go, so that you know she's
just say, I understand. That's all. Just say that.
Yeah. So that's.
It would really be that simple.
Yeah.
What?
It would really be that simple.
Yeah. I understand. I see you. I see who you were. I see who you were up against. So whatever it is, for example, if someone's mad at you and you want them, I want them not to be mad at me. I want them to know I didn't mean to hurt them. I want them to, you start to list, or when it's our kids and we've done, so we regret a mistake we made or something. I don't believe there's such a thing as a mistake really, but we want them just to have a nice life, just to be happy. Whatever is on your list of what you would want this outcome to be from others or life, give it to yourself. So when we met today, she was across the booth from me. You saw right away it was about self-forgiveness. So there's part of you that is hard on yourself, is not taking your part, is not understanding that you did the best you could, not saying, it's okay, I see you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So Byron Katie has 4 questions. And what are those 4 questions?
When you isolate a thought, for example, you go into a very specific situation, like someone was, this is the other side of our work, is that someone has said or done something and you're reacting. So you put the camera, you see yourself in that situation, and you write down any thoughts you were thinking about it. In fact, I'll say it sort of, if we do a judge your neighbor worksheet, it's just like a brain dump. I'm upset with blank because they, and we go ahead and judge them, even though everybody says don't judge, but if the judgments are there, get them on paper. I'm upset with blank because they, I want them to, they should, I need them to, they are, and I don't ever want to experience blank around this again. And then you take any one of those thoughts, like, she should understand me. In this case, well, let's use another one since understand was yours. But, you know, she should stop yelling at me. So the 4 questions would be, is it true?
Is it true?
Can I absolutely know it's true?
Absolutely not.
How do I react when I believe that thought? So it's not, oh, she's yelling and that's causing me to feel this way. It's she's yelling and I'm believing blank about her. So if you're believing, I need her to stop yelling at me, how do I react when I believe that thought and she's still yelling? You know, and then you take inventory. Well, I yell back at her, or I get really scared and I don't say what I really want to say, or you really hammer on you the cost of believing that thought that disempowered you. Then the really genius one is that a lot of spiritual traditions don't have in the work, which is this part of that I teach, is who would you be without that thought? So you go into your situation, mind's eye, exactly what happened, and instead of thinking I need her to stop yelling at me, you see yourself without that thought. It doesn't mean you need to not have that thought, but you imagine a you who doesn't have that thought, where you're just open to her. You're just, wow.
She's yelling at me.
Right, she's yelling at me.
And so what?
And what? And the so what feels a little, it's more like, for me, and maybe you probably didn't when you said that, but it feels like, wow, if I was believing about me what she's believing right now, I'd be yelling too. Like, you see, yeah, it doesn't have, I don't have to take it personally, that I can see her over there believing her thoughts. And this innocence thing, the worst that's ever happening, and you know because you've done this work, is we're all believing our thoughts. And so when we question the thought, and we see that the thing that upset us wasn't the other person, it wasn't our situation, it isn't that we lost our job, it isn't who's in office, it isn't whatever's upsetting you these days, it's what you're believing about it.
Right.
And so, yeah, part of what, and since I didn't bring the cards, if you put your name here, we'll also send you that, the four toxic thought types, because one of them is, you know, being in other people's business is one where you're not in charge. You've heard that. You're 3 kinds of business, yours, mine, and God's. But also, you know, any kind of, I say future is always fear. Past is always powerlessness because you can't change it.
Right.
And resistance to now, to what is happening right now, and the mind's going, I need it to be different, I need it to be this way, but it's not. That's no. So I say future is fear, past is powerless, and now is no, if you're believing.
Resistance.
Yeah, any time thoughts, like you can catch yourself in a time thought and go, oh, well, of course I'm engaging in fear because my mind is doing a future projection. So anyway, coming back to this, once we start to be able to see the thoughts that were driving us, then we can question them using this work. And that's sometimes step 2, just by asking the question, can I absolutely know that's going to happen? No. If it does happen, can I absolutely know it's a bad thing? No. But if you don't get those no's, because this is what I call a happiness hack. This is one of my shortcuts to loving life as it comes. as opposed to if you're not getting that no, then you do the full-blown work. You get the thought that your mind is telling you, I won't be able, to stand it if blank happens. Okay, can you absolutely know that's true? How do you react when you believe that thought? Fear in the moment, even though you're totally fine right now, but you're flooded with adrenaline. Who would I be right now without that thought? Just curious, seeing what's going to happen next, or taking action on something rather than just. So one of my happiness hacks, we've got, if you go to my website, there's about 10 happiness hacks. One of them is called Whack-A-Worry, which get not just questioning the thoughts using this method, but getting to the motive that keeps putting the thought back in front of you. It believes it's helping you by giving you all the negativity. And so Whack-A-Worry is, you find the thought, but instead of questioning the thought, you go, this thought is helping me. Is it true? So you take the part of you that believes it's helping you, and your mind will go, no, it's not true, it's not helping me. This worry is preventing the thing I fear. Is it true? And your mind will right away get, no, it's not. I need to know the time because my phone's on there. Do you know what time it is?
The time is now 4:47.
Okay, so we've just got a couple minutes. So what this brings you into, and this, as a person who beat up and abandoned myself, a way of life that I call self-solidarity, where I always am in charge of finding my own innocence and being the hero I was waiting for everyone else to be for me. I love it. This is what's at the center of the wheel. And I do have, this is my website, but one of the boot camp that actually teaches the work and the wheel of self-forgiveness is called the Get You Back Boot Camp. It's an 8-week course, and it's a self-paced course, but we put you into a whole year of support in my community with that. And then also, if you're in the year-long mastermind group, you get this Get You Back, which is sort of the primer of a whole different way of life, where when you know that what's upsetting you is holding your path out of it, then you're either loving life or using what hurts to wake yourself up. So there's no bad outcomes. It's sort of like the beginning of the end of fear. So if you're ready to move into self-solidarity, could grab that. It's funny that I thought I brought. Yep, the retreat too. Just stop by our, oops, that didn't go. Let's go all the way back. I will leave that one up. If you can't get back to booth 20, this is also though on the handout I sent, but I'd love for you to come and talk to me about what's going on with you and about these ways of being in the world. Like I said, on May 1st through 4th, it's the evening of the 1st, so that's a Thursday. It would just take a 3-day weekend. We're having our 19th retreat, but there's all kinds of free things. There's these happiness hacks, which are, I think, $7.95 each. There's just a lot of help as this different way of life where you know how to handle anger and judgment and victimization by others. And does anybody have any questions in the last minute or so? I love to work more directly with people rather than just stand up here, and we have a lot of intimacy and safety where people can work on anything, but anything else? But I would love, for example, for Kimberly, everything you want from her is a mirror into the ways you're letting down the littlest parts of you. And they're still waiting for you to be the hero. This is what we find sometimes. Defensiveness is one of the things I really use. If you want to defend or explain, it usually means you can't. Your survival has come up with I need to be X. Like when you're a baby, you're just sort of into whatever's happening and you're learning and you're growing and everything is fine. And if you need something, you just scream and cry and you don't worry about whether or not you're hurting their feelings. And then something happens where a need doesn't get met, and the child's mind goes, okay, in order to be okay and safe, because my survival depends on them, I need to be this and I need to do that. So this identity of who I need to be and do is all built on sort of faulty logic to start with. And so if somebody sees you in a way that isn't, they're not seeing me that way, and you just like this rage will come up where you want to defend or explain, or I can't believe you see me that way, especially in marriage it'll be. So anyway, that defensiveness dialogue is just, it's such a path out. There's so many ways that you can really help yourself. For example, that is a window into a childhood wound. So we take exactly, if you write a long letter to the person you want to defend to, and then you have the childlike part of you read that letter to you, because you're the one who abandoned that part of you. And whatever you thought you needed from everybody else, that littlest part of you needs it from you. Especially your own understanding of your choices, what you felt you had to do in the moment. You were absolutely doing the best you could. And it is.
Well, I do feel like understanding myself in that moment is kind of a key that's unlocking how I feel about that event. I do feel like a shift happened when you explained that technique. Would you call it a technique? What I want from her is what I need to give myself.
And what you were thinking and believing, and the spark of love lets you see that you were acting out of love for your mom too, or you were afraid of her reaction. Either way, and that was saving yourself. Either way, there was an innocent and loving motive behind it. You can find the most dastardly actions, and if you keep drilling down, you will find that whatever the person is believing did have a motive to fix or save or help. So thank you all for coming. Stop by booth 20 a little later.